Hello there, traveler. Come now, pull your cloak a little closer to the flames. The embers have been waiting for someone who knows the taste of dust and distance. Sit. Let the night hush its own wind while I tune a low chord. You asked whether I had a tale worth your weariness. I will give you 3, braided into one long strand. They stretch from a lonely village forge to moon-bright waters and onto a cliff that sings in dreams. Enough roadway, I think, to carry a mind the full hour between wakefulness and sleep. I have told these stories in taverns that stank of cheap wine and on palace balconies that look down over 100 lamps. Yet they sound best here, by a small, decent fire, beneath a sky so black it must be listening. So, if your eyelids grow heavy along the way, let them. The story will guide itself. I begin now with a woman whose hammer loved bronze the way poets love breath. Her name was Callista, and her forge stood at the downstream edge of Myini Valley, where pines poured their resin-sweet scent over rooftops. I spent an autumn there once, trading songs for horseshoes and for little iron tools the farmers treasured. At dusk, I would watch Callista stoke her coals until the air shimmered orange like the inside of a pumpkin lantern. She needed no anvil drum to draw a crowd. Flames sang for her. Even the local dogs lay down to listen. One red-stained moon appeared over the ridge, and with it came a visitor who wore storm smell in his hair and favored one leg that had never quite healed. Hephaestus, lame god of the forge, lurked in the door smoke and studied Callista's cadence. He said nothing. She did not ask his name. Sparks leapt merrily between them as though gossiping about destinies neither mortal nor god could yet pronounce. And the two lovers found themselves in a night that seemed to last an eternity. 9 months later, Myni heard a newborn's first exhale. Not a cry, mind you, but a soft whoosh like bellows that knew their business. The midwives crossed themselves, for the boy's eyes opened immediately and glowed the dull cherry of banked coals. Callista named him Aryan, after an ancient word for tempered steel. Aryan's childhood unspooled quietly, but the quiet felt significant, like a held breath. At 5, he tapped bronze into ribbons without scarring the grain. At 7, he forged a blade so balanced it would stand upright in river silt, edge kissing its own reflection. Villagers praised him by daylight and muttered by lamplight, for nothing provokes fear faster than a miracle that continues past its welcome. But Callista loved fearlessly. She told her son night after night, "Flame will obey patience, not pride." He pocketed the words as dutifully as another boy might pocket marbles. Beyond the valley, the world was cooling in unsettling increments. Chimneys cold by dawn, bees sluggish at noon, orchards blossoming late and weeping fruit early. A rumor drifted downhill from sages in marble cities. The gods had sealed the eternal flame. Inside a fortress of cloud on Mount Olympus, too frightened of mortal ambition to share it a second time, Aryan felt that theft every time his mother's bellows required double effort. He began dreaming of frozen anvils, of sparks that landed on skin and died like gnats in winter. One dawn, he kissed Callista's soot-lined cheek, slung a rawhide pack across his shoulders, and followed an intuition older than any map. I trailed him for 3 villages' distance. Bards are curious folk, and watched him take the cracked pilgrim road toward Delos, where an oracle nobody visited still whispered to crumbling columns. The prophetess of Delos greeted him from a stone throne crusted with moss. Her voice warbled like frost inside a flute. You will climb, you will carry the fire, you will not survive the carrying. No verse, no riddle, just doom dressed plainly, the way a shepherd might describe approaching rain. Aryan bowed once, neither servile nor defiant, as if accepting a hammer passed across hot iron. Olympus, however, allowed no straight ascent. To touch its summit, one first earned the notice of Cerberus, the 3-headed sentinel who dozes where mortal root meets immortal root. Aryan spent 3 nights and their shivering dawns forging a collar of obsidian, river iron, and the final glowing ember from his mother's hearth. He cut into the band 3 names: memory, loyalty, grief. And when dawn's grey hush shook awake the bats, he let those names cool in his palm like tiny coins of promise. Cerberus's cave smelled of damp stone and something older than mildew. Forgotten prayers, perhaps. The giants of breath inside the darkness rose and fell in a slow, tidal rhythm. Aryan entered, voice low, humming the lullaby Callista once threaded through bedtime silences. 3 massive heads stirred, one ear twitched, another eye cracked amber. He knelt, offered the collar, continued humming. The beast exhaled, 3 sighs braided into one, and the walls behind it yawned open, stones grinding like ancient mill wheels. Death, soothed by music and humility, stepped politely aside. The climb above ground was everything cold stone could devise: winds that sliced the soul's softer corners, ledges jeweled with black ice, whispers sown into fog predicting failure. Only once did a god appear outright. Hermes, slippered in feathers. He ambled beside Aryan without lifting a toe, flipped a silver coin across his knuckles, and spoke as though reciting a punchline he'd grown bored of. Carry that flame, little smith, and it will hollow you out like a bell. Then he pressed 2 fingers to the boy's chest. Aryan felt a bright thorn lodge above his sternum, pain and prophecy married in one spark. He nodded as though receiving final instruction on how to set a rivet, then kept climbing. At last, the summit revealed itself. No trumpets, no golden colonnades, only a grief-quiet clearing and the brazier, ancient and watchful. Flame inside appeared white, but white the way noon sun makes water white. Too full of color to reveal anyone. Aryan approached. Heat slipped into his marrow like recognition. A vision unfurled. Villages thawed. Orchards heavy again. Children laughing at hearths. And over all of it, the soft crack of his own body fracturing from within. He accepted the trade. Hands closed upon the living light. I saw no pyrotechnics. I saw transformation. The brazier dimmed, then died. Something brighter now mapped every vein in Aryan's arms. When he turned away, his outline flickered like a candle carried through sunlight, and Olympus, which had tried to kill him, seemed suddenly ashamed. Stones eased beneath his steps. The knife wind fell still. He walked back down into the mortal lands. Frost retreated wherever he set soul to earth. In the first village, a child shivering beside an unlit hearth met his gentle glance. Aryan touched the stone, and fire bloomed eager and tame. Word sprinted valley to valley. By the time he reached Callista's forge, he was a silhouette of amber cracks and barely any flesh. He pressed one palm to the cold anvil, smiled, and exhaled a final ember that sang his mother's forging song. No tombstone followed, only the knowledge that warmth walked the earth again, because a quiet boy once chose it over breathing. The flame he released slithered up chimney smoke, cooled into a sliver of silver ash, and drifted east until it brushed the still surface of a lake hidden between the cliffs of Sparta. There, on nights when the moon was full enough to read by, a warrior named Leonthe abandoned her drills, set aside bronze and oath, and came to kneel. I saw her the first night curiosity pushed me to follow. Her back was straight, yet something inside her posture seemed to sigh as a lone swan glided forward, neither startled nor proud. Month after month she returned, each time laying her helmet on the moss, each time meeting the bird's gaze across a hush so wide it swallowed the crickets. I played witness only in echoes, listening from brush. Even from a distance, one sensed the change in her stride back at camp. Less clangor, more composure, as if every full moon cooled the forge of her battle spirit and recast it in subtler metal. One autumn she followed a dream tug up the slope and found an ancient altar, briar-curtained, the name Apollo faint as a breath on frosted glass. Realization tore through her, sudden, total. She turned toward the water. The swan waited at the shore. Feathers rippled into light. Light condensed into the kneeling form of a man with dawn in his hair. For a pulse or two, they only stared. He opened his mouth perhaps to thank, perhaps to warn, but marble already laced his throat. Zeus's curse was merciless. If any mortal recognized Apollo mid-disguise, he would freeze into stone forever. Leonthe caught his hands even as they chilled. Her fingers traced veins turning to grey ridges. He smiled. No fear, only regret, and became a statue caught between flight and surrender. Leonthe rested her brow against his cold chest and let fall a sob that sounded like armor finally giving way. She never again donned Sparta's bronze. She built a small shelter of reeds near the grove, kept watch through decades while the statue's marble shoulders drank moonlight. I visited once in late winter. Her hair had silvered, but her eyes had grown incandescent with calm. She spoke little, only this: I keep him company, because love unfinished is still love. In time, she leaned against his shoulder, closed her eyes, and drifted into a sleep that snow could not wake. Villagers who stray there claim the statue's chest warms their palms, or that a lone swan circles at dusk, wingtips trailing starlight. I do not argue. I have seen stranger kindness from stone. One small feather, marble white, moon soft, rose from that silent grove, surrendered to a high current, and travelled far west until it settled on the strings of a weather-blackened lyre lying beside a gaunt man on a sea cliff. That man was Millennian, once crowned in every capital as the bard who could mend quarrels with a single refrain. I met him in his prime, when the 9 muses themselves called him brother and taught him songs older than iron. Years later, gossip reached me that Melanion had locked himself inside Mount Helicon's crystal caves and teased from the echoing chambers a final composition so complete the universe itself paused to listen. Fearful of lesser ears, or perhaps of his own pride, he swore no mortal would cheapen it. He never played it, never wrote it. The gods, unamused by such hoarding, cursed him with a tender cruelty. Every night he would dream that perfect music, feel it infuse his sinew, hear it ardent and whole. Every dawn it would vanish like a gull into fog. He woke each morning with heart thundering, hands reaching for strings already silent. I found him on that cliff, hair tangled by salt wind, fingers blistered from plucking snatches of melody he could not retain. He asked if I heard anything in the surf, some ghost of the harmony. I listened, only the tide answered. That evening he slipped into sleep mid-question, and I swear a glow spread across his sunken face, as though the dream itself cradled him. When sunrise painted the horizon peach, his chest no longer moved. We buried him beneath an olive whose roots taste the sea. Sometimes, on windless new moon nights, a single note spirals out of those branches, so pure it hushes waves for a heartbeat. Then is gone. So, traveler, an ember became a feather, became an invisible note. A boy melted, a warrior endured, a bard forgot. Yet each left behind warmth, devotion, or hush. If your road carries you onward before dawn, remember Aryan whenever firewood pops unexpectedly. Recall Leonthe when moonlight turns lake water to polished steel. Think of Melanion when a sudden note with no source sweetens the silence. Our hour is nearly spent. The fire has folded into sleepy red eyes, and the constellations have drifted a finger-width west. If you retell what you heard tonight, speak it in the past tense, as I have. Stories glow longer after they've cooled. Listeners lean closer to catch their fading heat. Now, follow one last spark as it wriggles free from the log, curls into the dark, and chooses its next listener. May it find them safely, and may your own dreams, when they come, borrow whatever warmth, feather softness, or half-remembered melody you need. Rest well, friend of the road.